Good morning. My name is Annie Foerster, and I'm minister at First Jefferson Unitarian Universalist Church. Welcome to our live streaming service, or maybe you're watching it on Facebook after the service has streamed live. I want to welcome you, whatever you are doing here. There is not much going on at the church because we have no in-person services, but we do want to stay connected. So listen for things going on during the week, read your emails, and keep in touch. Let's start our service with a prelude. Nisha. My call to worship this morning is from George Bernard Shaw, who could say a lot in just a few words. And he wrote, "Suppose the world were only one of God's jokes. Would you work any the less to make it a good joke instead of a bad one?" While you're contemplating that, please join me in singing our opening hymn, Morning Has Broken, number 38 in the book, but the words will be on your screen. I have a kind of frog in my throat this morning, and I want to save it for talking, so I'm just going to say the words as Misha plays the music. Morning has broken, like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken, like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise in the morning, praise for them springing, fresh from the word. Mine is the sun, mine is the morning, born of the one light, Eden saw play. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day. Thank you. I light our chalice this morning with the words of Christine Robinson. She wrote, "We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, and celebration of the life we share together." Please join me in saying our affirmation, the covenant we have between us. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. From all that dwell below the skies, Again, I want to thank all of those who make this service possible this morning. Guy Thornton operating the equipment, David Winkowski monitoring the streaming, Misha Bresnev at the piano, and Julie Hevelone who gathered all the words that are printed on your screen. And again, I want to remind you that contributions to the church can be made online at our website, firstjeffersonuu.org, or mailed to the church. Thank you for your participation. Okay, I'm going to call a time out here to do a little out loud thinking about the rest of the service. When we started the live streaming business a couple of weeks ago, I tried very hard to hew to the traditional order, thinking that you who are sheltering in place might find comfort in the familiar. I don't know if that's true or not. I think we might all be struggling with crisis fatigue and could use a little humor and or a little unfamiliarity about now. I'm thinking that I'd like to go to the seasonal wisdom from here on out this morning. 4 days ago, we celebrated April Fool's Day, a weird and wondrous day on our calendars. The last time it was on a Sunday, I did the service backwards, starting with the benediction and ending with the opening words and followed by the welcome. Nothing so dramatic this morning. I've given you 5 or 10 minutes of comfort and familiarity this morning, and really that's all you're going to get. There will be a story for all ages, a communion of names and milestones, a sermon of sorts, readings, music, all of that you've come to expect. But it's not going to be in any familiar order. I don't know about you, but I need shaking up once in a while when routines and order become too familiar. We will all need some compassionate shaking up as we weather this storm together. And today is going to be one of those days. Ready? Let's go. So, April Fool's Day. It is celebrated one way or the other throughout the world. No one is sure how or why it began. Now, we're supposed to learn from history, but we don't have a history about some of the most important, or at least ubiquitous days of our calendar. But this I learned online, but forgot to note the source. Sorry about that. I'll atone later. The practice of April Fool's pranks and hoaxes is controversial. The positive view is that April Fool's Day can be good for one's health because it encourages jokes, hoax, and pranks, and belly laughs, and bring all the benefits of laughter, including stress relief and reducing strain on the heart. There are many best of April Fool's Day lists that are compiled in order to showcase the best examples of how the day has been celebrated. Various April Fool's campaigns have been praised for their innovation, their creativity, writing, and general effort. But not all of those who were fooled, I would imagine, likes the day. Okay, this is me talking now. I'll get back to the quote in a minute. I've never been one to play April Fool's jokes, but I have done that kind of prank before, just out of pure orneriness. Confession time. When I was in seminary, a group of us took one evening a week to go square dancing, a break from our study routine. And there was this woman here in the class that was having a really difficult time identifying her right and left hand on command from the caller. This is very important during square dancing. And one evening she came in and announced that she had the problem solved. If you hold up your hands in front of you and do this so you know what I'm saying, the thumb and forefinger that make an L is your left hand. So all throughout the evening, whenever I saw her, I would do this. 2 L's. A lot of people thought it was hilarious, and she didn't. I regret it to this day and would apologize if only I remembered her name. So back to the article about April Fool's Day. The negative view of the holiday describes April Fool's hoaxes as creepy and manipulative, rude, and a little bit nasty, as well as based on deceit. There can be adverse effects to public jokes, such as confusion, misinformation, waste of resources, especially when the hoax concerns people in danger, and even legal or commercial consequences. Okay, now that I've ruined the holiday for you, I'm still curious as to how and why we celebrate this day every year. So I went to infoplease.com. The most accepted explanation has to do with the move from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar in 1582. Before that time, New Year's Day was celebrated on or around April 1st. But in that year, it was moved to January 1st because 2 new months were added. According to a popular explanation, many people in France either refused to accept the new date or did not learn about it and continued to celebrate New Year's Day on April 1st. Other people began to make fun of these traditionalists, sending them on fool's errands or trying to trick them into believing something false. And eventually this practice spread throughout Europe. Other explanations are proposed, but they don't have any proof behind them. Reading about all the jokes that have been perpetrated in the past makes me leery of contributing to any more of them. And I'm making a promise right now that I will celebrate humor and fun, but will never make fun of anyone in the name of April Fool's Day. Okay, it's time for a story. Call the children in if you have them. I called on Aesop for this timely story called The Old Woman and the Physician. It seems it was an old woman who had become blind, and she called in her physician and promised him before witnesses that if he would restore her eyesight, she would give him a most handsome reward. But, she said, if he did not cure her and her blindness remained, he would receive nothing. The agreement was accepted, but the wily doctor came daily and tampered from time to time with the old lady's eyes, putting drops in them or whatever, and after his supposed treatments, bit by bit he carried off her possessions, her pots and her pans, her furniture and her jewels. After a time, when he ran out of things to steal from the blind woman, he set about the real task of curing her blindness. He was a bad man, but a good doctor, and eventually he cured her, and then he asked her for the promised fee. But the old woman, on recovering her sight, saw none of her belongings were left in the house. She refused to pay him. When the doctor asked for his payment and she continually put him off with excuses, he brought her to trial before a judge. In her own defense, she said, "What this man says is true enough. I promised to give him his fee if my sight were restored, and nothing if my eyes continued to be bad. Now he says that I am cured, but I say I cannot be cured, for when my blindness first came on, I could see all sorts of furniture and goods in my house. But now he says when my eyesight has been restored, I cannot see anything at all." And the judge ruled in her favor. So the moral of this story is, he who plays a trick must be prepared to take a joke. How about another hymn right now? I kind of like 1059 in the Teal hymnal, "May Your Life Be as a Song." It's a short one, and we'll just sing it once. Talking has sort of broken up the frog in my throat. That wasn't too bad, was it? But what is happening in our community? What are the stories that need to live in our hearts and minds? I do have another public service announcement of things surprisingly fun and productive while sheltering in place. This one is from Turner Bridgeforth, our intern minister. He recently sent me a video of an obstacle course he made for his 3-year-old son in their apartment, with William running through the obstacle course at full speed. It went under tables and over couches, and at one point had a stop where he had to throw 3 basketballs in his scale-to-size hoop. I don't know if you don't have any children, maybe you could set one up for your spouse or your dog or your cat, whoever's there living with you. I heard from Joy Fletcher that her mother came through her surgery on Tuesday with flying colors and is doing well. Our thoughts were with Joy this past week as she worried about her mother. And I heard from Christina Laquise, who told me that she had made 50 face masks to be donated to people who need them. This might be all of us shortly, I understand. She is inviting everyone who sews to do the same. Patterns can be downloaded from YouTube and other sewing sources. The masks use quilting cotton and elastic or bias ties, and they don't have to be boring white. Other news from the congregation comes from the Caring and Sharing Committee. Betty Churchman has her committee members calling each of the church members in rotation, and these are the things we learned this week. Joel Bailey and Turner Bridgeforth are both working on the church grounds. Patrick Gutierrez is baking bread in his spare time. Jo Burnham reports she has booked the church for September 19th to celebrate her birthday. Looking forward to that. Marianne Herman is having trouble with one of her knees, but enjoys looking at the beauty of the season through her picture window. Thank goodness this didn't all start in the middle of December or winter. Paulette Howland's grandson was in a motorcycle accident, but is recovering well from his injuries. Her daughter had a blood clot removed and is also doing well, but her aunt in Colorado has not been doing well at all, and Paulette hopes we will keep her in our thoughts. Busy times at Paulette's, 2 new puppies and a doggy door, plus a new computer which she is determined to master before her 80th birthday. Colleen Brewer continues to work with Eastside Ministries, but keep her mother in your thoughts, please, as she recovers from a broken hip. Paul Shatman's great niece is graduating from high school, but no prom this year. That's going to be the case for a whole lot of seniors. The Thorntons report that Eliza's teacher is writing her thesis for a master's degree on gifted and talented students and wants to include Eliza in her paper. Way to go, Eliza. But we all knew that about you already. And finally, I am recovering from a case of poison ivy. I went out in the yard, well protected, and just mindlessly during my cutting down, I pushed up my sleeves and then picked up a whole bunch of ivy to throw in the garden cart. It's been a week, and I understand another week before it's cleared up. So folks, it's a dangerous world out there. Be careful and wash your hands. Let's take a moment to share the silence as we consider those people that we are missing as we shelter in place, those people we know the stories of what's going on in their lives, and those that we don't yet know about. Our shared silence gives us a time to focus on this community. Blessings on all your stories. They live in our hearts. Misha, number 123. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. I asked Misha to play this song during our live streaming after our meditation because I know it's one that most of you know the words to, and it's sort of a prayer for what's going on right now. So I'm going to continue now with part 2 of my sermonizing, and I call this portion Fake History. I think the term fake news is a modern sign of the times. If you think the term fake news is a modern sign of the times, think again. In the spirit of foolery, of being fooled, I looked up some historical events we all think are true and discovered that we have a great deal of fake history that goes way back and continues to be taught in our schools. Here's an example you probably have already heard about. Columbus Day, which commemorates the landing of Christopher Columbus in the Americas, was celebrated unofficially for years before becoming an official federal holiday in 1937. And most children across the United States are taught that Columbus discovered the United States of America when, in 1492, he sailed the ocean blue. In reality, he didn't discover America because people were already living here. Also, he landed in the Bahamas. In fact, his arrival decimated the population of natives that were already living there by exposing them to diseases they had no immunity to, and forcing them to convert to Christianity and turning some of them into slaves. Not really hero material, is he? It's no wonder people are calling for a name change like Indigenous Peoples Day. Or how about this one that we all take for granted, Labor Day? Labor Day was recognized as a national holiday in 1894, and supposedly it honors the workers of America and all the contributions they've made to society, as well as all of their sacrifices. I think today it's best known as a 3-day weekend that signifies the end of summer. But Labor Day was recognized as a holiday during one of the darkest chapters in American history for laborers. The average American worker at the time was working 12-hour days for 7 days a week in unsanitary and dangerous conditions that included poor ventilation and lack of access to bathrooms. There were also little or no restrictions on child labor. Labor Day itself was finally established to placate the American Railroad Union, which had organized a nationwide boycott of Pullman railroad cars, derailing both shipping and passenger travel across America. The strike resulted in riots in which more than a dozen workers died, and to restore the relationship between the government and the workers, Labor Day was created. Put that in your picnic basket next September. My third example goes way, way back. We have been told that the Bible says that the number 666 is the sign of the beast, a symbol of evil, of Satan himself. But what the passage really refers to is a coded system that was used in that day to pass on sensitive messages by changing groups of letters into groups of numbers. And the number 666 stood for Nero, the Roman emperor, one of the most evil rulers in all of history, a real beast who simply murdered those who disagreed with him. The code allowed people to talk about him without revealing who they were disparaging. Satan indeed. And speaking of codes, I remember reading some time ago that nursery rhymes were also a way of complaining about local despots in a manner you could deny, or relating history in a manner that could be remembered easily. So how about this one? Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. This verse was supposedly in reference to the Black Death in Europe in 1347, which would appear as black sores on your body. People stuffed posies or flowers into their pockets so they couldn't smell the resulting aromas of bodies piling up everywhere. The bodies were taken care of, were finally cremated so that the infection could no longer spread, and that's what the reference to ashes supposedly is about. The Black Death wiped out a significant 20% of the world's population, which is signified in "we all fall down." Somehow, everything I looked up this week, excuse me, that was a book that I just knocked off the pulpit. Somehow everything I looked up this week seemed to remind me of our current situation. Pandemics are not new. Here's another verse you thought might mean something else. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. This silly nursery rhyme that we probably all said at one time or another often has people questioning the validity of it simply because water is usually thought to be at the bottom of the hill instead of at the top. However, other theories suggest that it has a much deeper meaning than originally thought. Jack and Jill are assumed to represent Louis XVI of France and Queen Marie Antoinette, but this is often questioned since the dates don't necessarily correlate with their particular events. But the couple was said to be greedy, carelessly spending money and investing their life in finer goods, referring to they went up the hill to fetch a pail of water, or eager gluttony. King Louis XVI was beheaded, lost his crown, in 1793, and Marie Antoinette was then beheaded, came tumbling after, around 10 months after her husband's death. And finally, here's another one that we're all familiar with that might have secret meanings. Ba, ba, black sheep, have you any wool? Yes, sir, 3 bags full. 1 for the master, 1 for the dame, and 1 for the little boy who lives down the lane. Seems like a gentle poem. Most people will believe that this fun little nursery rhyme written in 1731 was in reference to the heavy taxes that were placed on wool in 1275. However, many others will say that it was in connection with the slave trade in the Americas. There has been a lot of controversy over the words black and master in the rhyme, depicting that it's considered racially offensive. Over the years, many people have tried to have the rhyme completely altered to be less controversial, but it still has a tendency to stick to its original wording. But now historians are telling us that none of this supposition of nursery rhymes echoing history is true at all. It all comes from a book researched and printed in the 1930s. Or it might be true, but can't be proven. Who knows? So what conclusions are we to draw from all of this on a day in April 2020, when controversy and concern rage around us? I can only offer this advice. In these perilous times, act with courage, with dignity and compassion for others, so that history, when it is written, will not find you out as a knave and a fool. But also find joy and humor in whatever the day may bring to you, because the telling of this time in the world's history will take a long, long time. Live gently, act justly, speak the truth or speak not, and in the words of John Brigham, take care of yourself, for you are a good gift to the world. Please join me in singing our closing hymn, number 1, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door. We extinguish the flame in our chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Be ours a religion which, like sunshine, goes everywhere. Its temple, all space. Its shrine, the good heart. Its creed, all truth. Its ritual, works of love. Its profession of faith, divine living. So go now and live divinely until we meet again. God bless.